in the budget subcommittee, which I chair and Mr. Lowenthal sits on along with Senator Fuller, we have been raising a number of these issues as well. But it's an out-of-the-way forum, quite frankly. Not a lot of folks are glued to their seats when it's time for the budget subcommittee conversations about transportation expenditures. I do think, particularly because Senator Rubio and Senator Gaines, you're not part of that conversation in the budget subcommittee, important to note that both in the informational hearings of this policy committee and in the budget subcommittee, the concerns that are being raised are not being raised simply by members of the legislature or by concerned members of the public. They have been raised over the course of the last 2 years by the Legislative Analyst's Office, by the State Auditor, by the Inspector General, by the Institute of Transportation Studies at the University of California at Berkeley, and by the peer review group that is established by Prop 1A. Those are 5 sets of folks who I think undeniably bring some real expertise to the conversation, who for the most part do not have a political agenda and who have expressed concern about all the issues that Senator LaMalfa, you've raised today. So I think each of us is in our own place. I have consistently described myself as someone who supports high-speed rail done right. To me, that means a genuine statewide system, prudent use of taxpayer dollars, and a system that is responsive to the legitimate concerns of people up and down the state who are, I think, reasonably worried about what the impact will be on their cities, their towns, their businesses, their neighborhoods, or their homes. It's not unreasonable for them to express those concerns and to expect the authority to respond in a reasonable way. After 2 years of waiting, frankly, I have not seen a proposal in the region I represent from the High-Speed Rail Authority that fits that description. And so, as you referenced, Senator LaMalfa, a few weeks ago, Assemblymember Rich Gordon and I, along with our Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, stepped up and said, well, here's a little more definition about what we think high-speed rail done right looks like. And I'm hopeful that that will lead to conversations with the authority that can head us off in a better direction. But I think, you know, for every member of the legislature, the clock is ticking because people are saying, you know, at what point is this effort going to put itself on a sound path going forward? And some of us are willing to give a little more time than others. You've obviously reached the limit on your watch. I'm not going to be able to support the bill today. I do want to clarify through the chair that if the bill is unsuccessful, that the request for reconsideration is formally acknowledged before the committee, and that, as is always the courtesy and custom here in the Senate, that reconsideration will be granted, so that if at some point in the future you feel like it may be time to come back to the committee and raise these issues again, that is formally acknowledged in today's proceedings. And with that, I'll say thanks again for making sure that this conversation took place in a broader arena.
Great. Thank you, Senator Simitian. Would you like to make closing comments?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Senator Gaines. I appreciate your comments, Senator Simitian, on that. And I come into this, you know, not naive to the fact that this legislature supported this effort and placed it on the ballot just a few short years ago after a couple of misfires as far as which election it was going to be on the ballot. I believe 04, then 06, then finally 08 was moved, if my history is accurate at this moment. So the voters needed a lot of convincing in order to do that. And so we saw different election dates put forward to give them a better chance at that. So to some of the points that were made here, we don't know yet what the alignment is truly going to be for the rail all up and down the state. Now let's talk about the South Bay, the peninsula there. Many people are up in arms just in that area. You may expect that that would be an area of strong support of it, and it may show that on the ballot. But when it comes actually to putting it through their neighborhoods, people don't want this elevated track, perhaps graffiti covered after a few years, running through their neighborhood with the sound, the sight, and all that. So they're asking for a tunnel to go through some of these very nice cities and valuable properties, so they don't have to see it and hear it. I can't say I blame them.
Right.
So how many billions does that add to the project right there? Should that be part of a plan that's eventually part of a compromise put forward? Let's move to the Valley real quick. We have great concerns put up by many people in agriculture, although they're seeking to work with members of this legislature and others to shape that into something maybe they could live with. There's much consternation in the valley amongst agriculture as to what is the alignment of the track going to mean? What's it mean for the dissecting of their properties into unusable small pieces, as well as homeowners, as well as at-grade crossings? Much of agriculture has to use the present crossings now. Are we going to have elevated crossings often enough there you're not having tractors and trucks and local people having to drive many miles around to find where there isn't indeed a crossing to get past this rail system? Do you want a 220 mile per hour rail line going through an at-grade crossing, if indeed it does reach 220? I wonder about that. So there's great concern up and down the valley. Come back to costs. Many articles out there showing this is going through the stratosphere. I have to come back to the fiscal accountability. I was elected to do it, and I think this legislature is placed here to do. So we talk about jobs. For once, 1/10 of the cost of what I think the eventual price of high-speed rail will be once all these conditions are met, likely $100 billion, we could build 2 dams in California and turn the water on back to the valley. Yeah, you're waiting for that one. We could build 2 dams, turn on more water back to the valley, and get ag jobs going once again, and have long-term jobs that are sustainable. So, as I close here, and I appreciate everybody's indulgence and patience, this is a big issue. It's a big step I'm trying to take here with you all. I ask for your aye vote so that we can pause, take time out, and truly assess what's this going to cost our state over the years. Who will the riders be? Will they be able to afford the ticket? Is it going to truly have the benefits that has been sold to them? I don't think it returns that. So I certainly look forward to anybody that want to have input and work with me on the bill. Senator Rubio expressed that. This doesn't have to end here today. Indeed, with the billions of dollars awaiting out there, federal billions, as well as state billions that the taxpayers will be online for, we need to get this right. We need to have this discussion and take it back to the people for their opinion. So I'll close there, ask you for aye vote. Thank you for your consideration.
All right. Thank you, Senator LaMalfa. Do we have a motion? Okay, I will move. And if we get a roll call vote, please.
The motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desaulniers, Gaines.
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon. Huff. Kehoe.
No.
Kehoe, no. Lowenthal.
No.
Lowenthal, no. Pavley. Rubio. Semidian.
No.
Semidian, no.
Okay, 1 to 3, it's on call. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, once again, just to formally put on record the request for reconsideration
I would like to
and the expectation that reconsideration will be granted, as is the custom and courtesy of the Senate, if the measure comes up with an insufficient number of votes today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, great. We have item number 5, SB 444. Evans?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. I promise not to beat you up too much with my red boxing gloves, but I brought them because they became the symbol of my earlier piece of legislation on this subject, which was AB 1542, introduced in 2007. We passed that bill out of the legislature and got it to Governor Schwarzenegger's desk, but he unfortunately vetoed it. So now it's back in substantially similar form in SB 444. And this bill deals with the very important and critical issue of mobile home conversions around the state. Mobile homes have traditionally provided affordable housing to people that would otherwise be priced out of the home ownership market, and throughout the state, local rent control ordinances keep mobile home parks at an affordable rate for seniors and for working families who are on fixed incomes. Current law allows a mobile home park to be subdivided into residential ownership, and The original law was written in order to give the residents of mobile home parks an opportunity to purchase the land upon which their mobile home sat. The problem is that as soon as the first lot is sold in a mobile home park conversion, a 4-year phase-out of the rent control begins, and this compromises our stock of affordable housing. In the past few years, there have been a surge in applications being filed by park owners who want to convert their parks from rental into residential ownership, and state law provides that home ownerships and local governments should have a say in this conversion process, but some courts have held that the law is ambiguous and have actually requested the legislature to fix it, including 2 recent cases out of the 2nd District Court of Appeals. This bill would address those flaws in or those gaps in the law that were identified by the recent court cases. In particular, the requirement that the park owner conduct a survey of support among current homeowners. This bill would make it clear that the local governments can consider the survey of support in determining whether or not to approve, conditionally approve, or deny the subdivision map. And it additionally clarifies that the local government can also consider whether the map complies with other applicable state laws. This will give local governments the information they need to determine whether it's necessary to intervene to protect the affordable housing supply and the interests of low-income homeowners. SB 444 does not ban conversions. It attempts to strike a balance between an outright ban on conversions and no regulation at all. It also preserves current law that allows conversions to proceed without a map, where 2/3 of the park residents are in favor of conversion. There are several witnesses here today to testify in support of the bill. Specifically, I have Sue Gallagher from Sonoma County here to testify and answer questions in support of the bill. This has been an issue in Sonoma County. I also have Carson City Attorney Bill Winder and Brian Augusta from the Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League.
Thank you, Senator. You know, we've heard this bill or versions of this bill before, so I would like the witnesses to be brief in their testimony because this committee is familiar with the issue. Witnesses in support.
Thank you, Senator Lowenthal. Brian Augusta, and I will be brief because many people have traveled a lot further than I have to be here today, including dozens of our supporters in the audience. I represent the Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League. We are, or I represent property owners, the homeowners who live in the parks and own the homes, whose investment is inextricably linked to the decision to convert. And as you'll hear more from other folks, this is an important issue to ensure that we get it right, that folks who own these homes, who are property owners, have a voice in the decision-making to help balance the interests of the 2 property owners. We think we've struck the right balance in this bill. The courts have urged us, as the Senator has said, to fix this law. We're here to fix it. We hope we'll have your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support.
Yes, thank you, members of the committee. My name is Bill Winder. I'm the city attorney of the City of Carson. The City of Carson and the City of Los Angeles are here to urge an aye vote on SB 444. I will be brief in my remarks to focus in on what the bill does rather than what it has been characterized as having done. The bill does 2 things and 2 things only. It is declarative of existing law and clarifies that the resident survey of support that this legislature adopted in AB 930 has some meaning, and that the word consider in the language of the bill actually means what it says, that a local planning agency or a county board of supervisors can actually consider the results of the resident survey in determining whether to approve, conditionally approve, or deny a map. It does not confer a veto power on any one segment of the community, but it does give a voice to those vitally affected by a mobile home park conversion, and that is the owners of the manufactured homes themselves. The second thing that the bill does is that it confirms what the Pacific Palisades Court says has to be true, and that is, notwithstanding the expansive language of 66427.5, the bill was never intended to preempt co-equal branches, co-equal laws of the state of California. For example, the language of 66427.5 was never intended to preempt the application of the Coastal Act for mobile home communities that live in the coastal zone. Neither was it intended to preempt the Mello Act when intending to provide affordable housing requirements for mobile home parks in the coastal zone. This bill makes it clear that 66427.5's preemptive impact does not include co-equal state laws like the Subdivision Map Act, like the requirements of the general plan and the housing element. And for those two reasons, and because all the bill does is declare that's what the legislature actually intended long ago when it adopted AB 930, the City of Carson and the City of Los Angeles urge an aye vote.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Sue Gallagher on behalf of the County of Sonoma. 444 is essential to clarify Section 66427.5 and to clear and calm the waters. Cities and counties, Sonoma County and many others, are seeking in good faith to implement the provisions of 66427.5 fairly and appropriately, and yet we are routinely facing multi-million-dollar lawsuits. The trial courts have not given us clear answers, and now 4 different appellate court decisions have invited the legislature to step in to resolve the controversy. The heated controversies that swirl around conversions, as Senator Evans suggested, really stem from the complex economic relationship in mobile home parks. There is a relationship of dual ownership. So the park owner owns the land beneath, and the park residents own their coaches, which are generally fixed in place. And the conversion dramatically shifts and reshapes those investments. There's a lot at stake for all of the parties. The ambiguities in the statute allow the controversies to fester and to play out in costly, repeated, and time-consuming litigation. Sonoma County, we are currently facing a $24.8 million lawsuit, even though the conversion application has not yet even been finally decided. In these economic times, when essential services are being cut, we cannot afford to engage in that level of litigation, even if we are very confident in our position. It has a chilling effect. I will summarize very quickly. I know it's late. The SB 444 will resolve the 2 issues that the survey of support, when the law says that we are to consider the survey of support, that means something, that it is not an empty exercise, that we can weigh those results when we reach our decision. And second, that the bill will confirm that other state laws will apply, that all of those laws that apply to virtually all other subdivisions and condominium conversions, zoning and planning, Coastal Act, Mello Act, Subdivision Act, those will apply as well here.
In conclusion,
yes, thank you. We respectfully request and urge an aye vote on 444.
thank you. Other witnesses, please just state your name, your affiliation, and whether you're in support or not.
Yes, my name is Jim Deere, and I serve as the mayor of the city of Carson, California.
Welcome, Mayor Deere.
Thank
It's
you,
a pleasure
Senator.
to see you.
And I thank the senators for their time on this very important issue. I have a brief statement I'd like to
Brief
read.
statement.
In mobile home park conversions, we are dealing with dual property rights, those of the mobile home park owners and the property rights of the individual homeowners, also known as residents of the park. Currently, due to a loophole in Government Code 66427.5, the property rights of mobile home owners are being completely ignored through the conversion process. No fewer than 3 appellate courts have politely reminded the state legislature that the statute is broken and needs to be fixed. Senate Bill 444 simply seeks to restore fairness and balance to the process of converting mobile home parks from rental spaces to multi-parcel ownership. It reinforces city councils and boards of supervisors' clear discretion to consider the rights of mobile home owners when a park proposes to convert to a mobile home park. a park owner wants to convert. I believe that you cannot be interested in allowing one property owner to take away the property rights of many property owners. SB 444 merely seeks to clarify existing state law, not to change it. This bill would allow a city or county to approve or deny or conditionally approve a conversion application based on the level of resident support for the conversion. This bill would also make clear, with reference to recent court rulings, as the Colony Cove and Pacific Palisades Courts of Appeal have already ruled, that other applicable state laws apply to conversions. And the City of Carson, with 21 mobile home parks, urges an aye vote on SB 444. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support?
Mr. Chairman, members, Jason Gonzalez representing the cities of Chino, Palm Desert, and Torrance. Always happy to support a senator with boxing gloves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Red ones.
All right. That was very succinctly done and very well done. Any other witnesses in support?
Steve Wallach on behalf of the Ventura County Board of Supervisors also strongly support this bill and urge your
That was
aye vote.
wonderful. Other witnesses in support?
Jennifer Whiting with the League of California Cities in support.
Marjorie Murray, California Alliance for Retired Americans in support.
Thank you.
Mary Hahn, AARP in support.
Michael Endicott with Sierra Club California, and we conclude this is a good bill.
And you're in support. That's
I'm sure he
exactly
is.
what I want to know. Yes.
Mike Montgomery with the Congress of California Seniors. We support the bill. Thanks.
Roger McConnell, President of the Santa Rosa Manufactured Homeowners Association and Zone Vice President for GSMOL. We are in strong support.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Jim Burr. I'm the state president of the Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League. We adamantly oppose any forced conversions simply to escape rent control, and we urge your aye vote on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Here comes one flying up to the microphone. Come on. Shh, just beat us.
I forgot my gloves.
All right.
You can borrow mine.
Must be from Sonoma.
No, I'm from Santa Cruz.
All right.
And a whole bunch of us came up to watch this wonderful show that we saw all afternoon. And we didn't know we were supposed to bring gloves.
This is a reality TV show.
My name is Marty Brick. I work with GSMOL. And may I ask all the people from Santa Cruz to please stand?
Please stand, but don't come forward.
Okay.
Great. And there's two more of it.
We
You're in
urge
support. Just say aye vote.
an aye vote, please. Thank you.
Any other witnesses in support? You're the final one.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My name is Lloyd Logan. I'm a senior consultant with the Golden State Manufactured Homeowners League, and we urge you to give us an aye vote.
Thank you. All right. Witnesses in opposition. Come on down. Those in support.
Senator
will have
Lowenthal,
to-
while the opponents are coming forward, I might note there are other people in the audience here in support as well who have traveled a long way but aren't necessarily testifying, and I might ask them to raise their hands and be acknowledged. Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Noreen packs them in. Let's go. Witnesses in opposition. Let's have the two major ones, who are going to give the policy issues, and the others are just going to say, me too. All right.
My name is Richard Close. I'm an attorney from the firm of Gilchrist and Rudder.
Yes.
And we represent a number of mobile home park owners and have been involved in this for about 15, 18 years. One of the statements that was made a couple minutes ago was after the sale of one house, rent control goes away. That's not exactly correct. What happens is state rent control takes effect. And for low-income residents, which represents about 80% of the residents of mobile home parks, for those 80%, the maximum rent increase is CPI for life. No one is required to move out. People can stay forever. And if they're low income, their rent can never go up more than CPI. Number two, there was an amendment about a week ago to take away the requirement of local laws being enforced against subdivision because of the fact that this is an effort by the state legislature to have a statewide system of regulation of subdivisions. But in fact, that's a non-amendment because by keying into other state laws, what they're doing is requiring each park to comply with citywide rules throughout the state of California. And number three, retroactivity. We heard about retroactivity. What that will do is that will eliminate the time and effort and investment that have been made by resident groups as well as park owners for the last 2 or 3 years based upon the current law. By now declaring retroactively these changes, these investments would be eliminated. Next, they talk about a resident survey and adequate support. What is adequate support? Is it 10%, 20%, 30%? This is an effort to give the cities carte blanche to deny the right of residents to purchase their spaces if an owner decides to subdivide. And finally, we need to have a system that is statewide that both the residents who want to buy spaces and park owners who are willing to subdivide their park can live with. This law muddies it up. All it does is allows cities to impose conditions that make it too expensive and too complicated for park owners and resident groups to purchase their spaces. We urge a no vote on SB 444.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition?
Catherine Borg with the Western Manufactured Housing Communities Association. I will be brief, although they got, 20 versus us 2. We'll take that. Since the boxing gloves are in the
audience. You didn't bring up a whole bunch of people, Catherine. You had the opportunity.
The issue that I would like to bring up today is this issue of clarification, this issue of what the bill or the law was supposed to be intended to do. I'm going to bring Senator Kehoe and Senator Lowenthal back to the days in which they were assembly members and they voted on AB 930. Senator Lowenthal, you were the chair of the Assembly Housing Committee at the time, and your analyst, Jay Barkman, in the Assembly Housing analysis that did the floor statement on 930, the floor analysis said about AB 930. The fact the majority of the residents do not support the conversion is not, however, an appropriate means for determining the legitimacy of a conversion. The law, AB 930, is not intended to allow park residents to block a request to subdivide. Instead, the law is intended to provide some measure of fiscal protection to non-purchasing residents. AB 930 was not intended with the survey requirement to allow residents to block or vote on whether or not a property was allowed to be subdivided. To do so would to give residents de facto land property rights. And we would have completely opposed that measure. Right. And we had negotiated with Assemblymember Keeley at the time to get this negotiated language because the only conversion that was happening at the time was happening at the El Dorado Park in Palm Springs. This bill was a gut and amend. AB 930 was a gut and amend at the end of session to just respond to that one specific conversion. And so it was very important to all of us at the time to not inhibit what was going on in that conversion. And so the survey requirement, although we probably shouldn't have allowed it to go through because it's been very confusing over the last 10 years, was there as just kind of a trial balloon to look back and to see whether or not it was a sham conversion. But now El Dorado was not a sham. 65% of the resident lots are sold. It is, with the housing downturn, probably more would have sold at this point, but it has not been a sham conversion. And that language was specifically put in there for that El Dorado situation. And that one only. It was not thought at the time that all of this was going to be going on. And so we did not want that to give de facto property rights to residents to vote up or down whether or not the park was going to be converted. And that was very important to us at the time. But now, revisionist history with people who weren't around at that time say that, oh, this is SB 444 is just clarifying, is just, declaratory of existing law. It is not declaratory of existing law. and we oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. I knew my past would come back to haunt me. Yes.
Mr. Chair, Trent Smith on behalf of the California Mobile Home Park Owners Alliance. I'll forego my 30-minute testimony and just say we're also opposed.
Oh, you can go on for 28 minutes. Now, other witnesses, Senator Huff concurs with you. Other witnesses in opposition.
They were supporters. Those are the folks.
Oh, you're supportive.
They've changed their mind.
Members of the committee? Not hearing any.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I'll move the bill.
And the bill is moved as what? Anything? Do pass to appropriation? Just do pass. Bill's been moved. Senator, would you like to close?
I will simply say there are a lot of issues that have been raised. Most of them, if not all of them, have been very adequately analyzed in the committee staff report. And this is very much needed legislation. We've had many, many years of experience now with 930. And we have revealed some gaping holes in that legislation. And the fact of the matter is that the application of that legislation has led to some very significant challenges for both local rent control and for low-income residents of these mobile home parks. And so I would ask for your aye vote.
Will the Secretary please call the roll? Do pass.
Senators Desaulniers, Gaines, Harmon, no. Huff, Kehoe.
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley, Rubio, Simidian.
Bill has 2 votes. We'll place that on call
Thank
for
you.
the absent members. Now, who is next?
I have one more bill.
Oh, she has one more bill.
Oh, you have one more bill?
Yes, hopefully a little bit briefer. Thank you. This bill is SB 929. It deals with safety of the seating arrangements of children in automobiles.
I did this bill.
Just simply following your
this
lead.
bill.
Following your lead, Senator.
It's identical to SB 177, done by that famous Senator Lowenthal.
For the remainder of the committee, the bill provides that a child who is 6 years of age or younger or who weighs less than 60 pounds may be seated in the front seat of a vehicle when all of the back seats are already occupied by children under the age of 8. It corrects an error in existing law and allows this seating arrangement to occur legally, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Excellent bill. Other witnesses in support? They're racing up. Let them come. Here they come.
Could I go next if you want?
Yes, you may.
I've got my Sandy.
We're just going to get these folks out of here. The Automobile Club.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, members of the committee, Tim Chang with the Auto Club of Southern California. We do support the widespread use of child safety seats, and we think this is a good bill and will save lives. So we urge your support.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, members Paula Labrie with AAA Northern California also in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Are there witnesses in opposition? Members of the committee?
Move the bill.
Bill's been moved by Senator Kehoe. Would you like to close?
I ask for an aye vote.
Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is do pass and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desaulniers, Gaines, Harmon. No. Harmon, no. Huff. Kehoe.
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley. Rubio. Simidian.
The bill has 2 votes. We'll place that on call.
Thank you.
Senator Kehoe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I want to present SB 468 having to do with freeway expansions in the coastal zone, and I think I have a bunch of witnesses coming up.
There may not be as many people as
All right,
Santa
well,
Cruz, but
what's it-
there are at least somebody
Yes.
from San Diego.
We have some representatives from Sandig, the Associated Governments down in San Diego.
No, you're sitting there. It's Kehoe.
Hello, Mr. Stacks, Mr. Gallegos, Mr. Ackerman, come on up.
They're working this stuff out.
All righty. Members, this bill was intended to impact 40-year, $4 billion freeway expansion in San Diego, and it covered the entire coastal zone. Today, I want to take amendments that refocus the bill entirely on San Diego County. So
Okay.
it's a county-only bill.
Are you going to take that amendment in this committee?
No, we're taking all the amendments going into approps.
Don't trust us, eh? Okay.
No, on the contrary, it's not trust us. Transportation staff and the chairman have been involved in my discussions with Sandag and other stakeholders in San Diego.
Good.
Last Friday, San Diego board members and the executive director and some additional folks met in my office for, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and are virtually about 90% into full agreement. There are a few things to work out, but we would like the time to work on language and circulate it with all the stakeholders, so we're asking for your indulgence today.
Absolutely.
But by no means does it, the committee's work is, do I mean that this committee's work is done, because we intend to keep the chair and the members completely involved. Let me see, what else am I supposed to say today?
What does this bill do, Senator? That's what you ought to tell us. Thank you.
This bill was focused on, there's a 40-year, $4 billion expansion of the I-5 corridor in San Diego County. It includes transit improvements and highway expansion. My bill was going to require more investment in transit sooner, some process changes having to do with Coastal Commission, and a number of other items. There's a lot of controversy here in the district, and you'll hear about maybe a little bit of that from Sandag. So we came together, and now we're working on a plan that will allow transit and highway improvements to occur concurrently, fewer impacts on the coastal lagoons. There's 5 coastal lagoons in this area, more transit capacity, et cetera. But we're not all the way there yet, but we're getting there.
Through the chair, if I could, please. You've indicated these amendments are going to be taken by you in appropriations. Have we seen them in this committee? Has our staff seen them? Has committee staff or Republican staff seen these amendments? They
are not yet written, Senator Harmon, but you will see them before they get to approps. Your staff and all the committee staff will see them. That's kind of it. I mean, I'd like to have the Sandag board talk about it and give you their side, but I think there's a potential here for an innovative bill that will improve the freeway expansion, have less impacts on our 5 coastal lagoons, improve transit capacity, et cetera. So I'll introduce Jerome Stocks.
It might be helpful for some of the witnesses to identify what are still the remaining critical issues, or where are we on those? Because I think you've laid out now the general idea of the I-5 expansion and some of the issues, and that's what you're working on.
Jerome Stocks from the city of Encinitas can start it off.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, committee, it's a real honor to be here today. Okay, thanks.
You might say that again in the microphone now, how much of an honor it is to be here, and your name.
Jerome Stocks, Deputy Mayor, City of Encinitas, and Board Chairman, Sandag, San Diego Association of Governments. Here representing Sandag, which of course is the MPO and the RTPA and the County Transportation Commission for San Diego County. And as detailed in our April 27th letter, Sandag is strongly and regrettably opposed to the version of SB 468 before this committee today. But don't stop there. We're not done. Okay? Don't buy yet. Our opposition stems not from the spirit of the bill, but with the unintended consequences as the bill is currently drafted. We, in fact, share Senator Kehoe's goals of improving transportation choices in the I-5 corridor and ensuring protection of our unique coastal resources. Our main concern is that the current bill would delay or derail both coastal railroad improvements and the Interstate 5 North Coast Corridor project, which has been included in the Sandag transportation plans for more than 20 years and was approved by more than 2/3 of San Diego County voters in 2004 with our Transnet extension. We met with Senator Kehoe Friday afternoon late. Thank you again for that. to discuss our concerns about the bill as currently written, and I'm pleased to report that the meeting was extremely positive and productive. We appreciate Senator Kehoe's efforts in reaching out and agreeing to work with us on amendments to the bill. Now, while detailed language will still need to be worked out, several important points agreed to include working towards completing current efforts to allow an early phase of improvements to move forward to help create jobs and enhance the economy of California and San Diego County, continuing to collaborate with the Coastal Commission, local jurisdictions, and other agencies on environmental review and coordination efforts, using resources Sandag brings as a self-help county to accelerate environmental enhancements in the corridor once all necessary permits, including the coastal permit, are obtained, constructing certain transit and highway improvements concurrently in order to minimize impacts to the coastal lagoons and enhance public transit options in the corridor, as the Senator mentioned. We would sincerely like to thank Senator Kehoe for her willingness to work with us and our local and regional partners, and we are very optimistic that we can work on a compromise that will create local jobs by making transportation and environmental improvements to the Interstate 5 and Low Sand corridor sooner rather than later, enhance public transit, and protect our local coastal environments.
Thank you. Other witnesses in opposition?
In support.
In support.
Well, I mean, your support is amended or whatever.
Mr. Chairman, Gary Gallegos.
Whatever you hear, just let us know.
You're in support of the amendments. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Gary Gallegos, the Executive Director here, supporting the chair. And I think to bring clarity, I think as the chair points out, the bill in front of you gives us problems, but we're working very cooperatively with the senator, and we think that once we get all those amendments, that will help move to the point where we could support it and get to where the chairman's talked about.
Right now, you're still in opposition, but after that meeting on Friday, and what you're saying in the list that the chair mentioned, you're pretty much there. Is there anything that you want to tell us that still needs to be worked on, that you're not there?
I think there were agreement on on all the points in our meeting with the senator, and now we just, hopefully you'll appreciate the devil's in the detail, right? So now we got to take those agreements and transfer them into legislative language that everybody's happy with, and see where we end up as we're working through those cooperatively with the senator's staff and ourselves, and we hope to be able to accomplish that, Senator, I hope fairly quickly here.
And I don't mean to take a second bite of the apple so quickly, but I do want to give you the reassurance that I have an extremely high degree of confidence that we really will reach a bill that'll be a great enhancement to the region.
Okay. Other witnesses in support, opposition, or something?
Well, I think that you aptly described to Senator Lowenthal where we're at. This is Patrick Crane from the California State Council of Labor. We are very glad that the senator has sat down with us, as well as working with our staff in coming up with a framework. We are anxious to see what the verbiage will actually be. But our primary focus is to get the folks of the San Diego area back to work sooner rather than later, and we were concerned with the extra involvement of the Coastal Commission where they hadn't been before, but it sounds like we are moving very quickly to a place where we'll be able to be supportive, hopefully, in the near future.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, Dave Ackerman, representing the Associated General Contractors. I think in response to Senator Harmon's question, what the bill does and what it will do are vastly different. We are opposed to the bill in its current form, which basically would have shut down the development of the I-5 project and delayed it and possibly lost those funds. The compromise that we're working out will allow sequential development to go on with both transit and highways. We think that's a positive step. The devil is in the detail, but we've worked with your consultant in the language, and I think we're confident that we will reach an agreement that the industry will be in support of.
Good.
I thank the author.
This is the way bills should be. Other witnesses in support. And the budget. Listen to this. Working things out. This is a new concept for California. Yes.
Mr. Chair, members, Hugh Bauer on behalf of the City of San Marcos. Our position is in line with that of Sandag, and we also look forward to productive negotiations as the bill moves forward.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, this is Paul Webster with the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. As somebody who drives between Carlsbad and downtown San Diego every day on my commute, I'm very encouraged that Senator Kehoe, thank you, Senator Kehoe, that you're moving to expedite and not delay improvements to I-5. One of our our current concerns that remain is the preference for 8 lanes plus 4 managed lane proposal as opposed to the 10 plus 4 lane option. The Chamber would like to see the 10 plus 4 lane option. We understand that there's still, if you excuse the pun, some water to cross on this thing as we talk about concurrent building of highway and lagoon bridges. But we believe that the train is headed in the right direction. Another terrible pun.
It's another pun.
So we do continue to oppose SB 468 pending the author's further amendments. We look forward to seeing the improvements in the final language of the bill. Thank you.
Other witnesses in support.
Mr. Chair, members, Cesar Diaz on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. Also associate my comments with Mr. Hennings. We're very thankful for the Senator working with our affiliates and trying to address our concerns and support the bill. Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Chairman and members, Mark Smith with the American Council of Engineering Companies of California. In the awkward position that everybody else is, I just would like to add one additional policy perspective that hasn't been discussed yet. Our concerns in the previous committee that this bill had linked the concepts of AB 32 and SB 375 specifically to the I-5 project. And I want to remind everybody that the Sustainable Community Strategy was designed to allow flexibility for local leaders to make decisions over what projects would be implemented in order to meet an overall greenhouse gas reduction. It was not intended to target specific projects. We hope that the amended language will clear up any confusion there and not try to create a link between SB 375 and a specific project, such as the I-5 corridor. We think that would set a terrible precedent for the implementation of SB 375 moving forward. Thank you.
Other witnesses?
Moira Top, on behalf of the Orange County Transportation Authority, we too came to the committee with an opposed position. We remain opposed. We're looking forward to the amendments. We appreciate the authors' willingness to take amendments. I would note, though, that the issue about making it a San Diego County only issue, we still would look at it and with the eye of whether or not this sets a precedent for the rest of the state that is good to follow. So we look forward to seeing the amendments as they come out. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Chris Walker on behalf of the Transportation Corridor Agencies of Orange County. They too are opposed to the bill in its current form. We have not seen any amendments. We're anxious to see if those amendments would ameliorate our concerns. So we look forward to seeing those.
Thomas Vu with the California Chamber of Commerce. Like everyone else, we are opposed to the bill. Once the amended language is out, we will reevaluate our position. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Matthew Hargo with the California Business Properties Association here today representing our local associations of the Building Owners and Managers Association of San Diego and NAIOP of San Diego. We would like to associate our comments with SANDAG, the San Diego Chamber, and our friends in labor. And that we're looking forward to see some amendments here, but at the moment we are in opposition to the bill, but hopefully can work something out with the author. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Tim Chang with the Auto Club of Southern California. We are opposed to the bill as it's currently drafted, and we are anxious to see what the new language looks like. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Tim Egan with the Ventura County Transportation Commission. We specifically support the staff's recommendation for the amendments on 8A, which would just, address the issues we have that this would apply to other coastal counties. And I don't think that's necessarily the intent of the author, and obviously look forward to looking at the language.
Steve Cruz for the California Building Industry Association, and for us as well, we're in the oppose but wait and see the amendment mode. Thank you.
Michael Endicott with Sierra Club California, and I'm also joined in my comments by Jenna Price of the Planning Conservation League. I'd actually like to be in support, but this is an unusual hearing. We enjoy working with the Senator on some major projects. Senator Kehoe is always good about trying to really get everybody together. But first, I just would like to say that we are in support of the concept of the bill as it stands before we have to oppose it, But right now, and the key part of this bill and why this is so important, and I appreciate that Sandag is working on this and that we are doing it, is that whether you want to connect it to SB 375 greenhouse gases or not, or the environment, the fact of the matter is those things are happening, and that's part of the environment and the reality in which we're working. And the other thing that's really critical is that we need to get on concurrent tracks for how we take care of these issues and look at them, and we need to be making sure that we're assessing how we do that. So we really appreciate the indulgence of the committee. It's clear that all the parties here...
Sierra Club is currently in support, is it not, or what?
Yes.
Yes.
So we are currently... I wanted to say that.
We'll keep it like that.
We wanted to be in support. We are in support. We're comfortable with moving forward, even though apparently all the opposition is happy about the way we're moving forward. So I just wanted to put that on the record. I think it's really important, and the Planning and Conservation League also thinks that. I think this is very important. You have to look at what the core part of the bill is, and we appreciate and we think that Sandag and the others that came up here also share that, because they live in that environment as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members of the committee. Senator Harman and then Senator Huff.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Senator Keogh, you and I came to the legislature at the same time about 10 years ago, and with Senator Pavley, that's right.
Yes.
And I want to tell you, I think you've set the record here that I've never seen before. Have 14 witnesses in support come up and all say they're opposed. So I've jotted down that the train is headed in the right direction. We're anxious to see the amendments. We want this supported in concept. We support the staff recommendation for amendments. It sounds like you got something good going here, but you know, this is the Transportation Committee, and this is a huge transportation-oriented bill.
It is.
And, you know, you're here asking us to support it and send it to the Appropriations Committee. I'm just concerned about that process, and representing Orange County, and I was glad to see the representative here from Orange County Transit Authority. You know, what is the effect of this transportation project going north on the I-5 corridor right into the heart of Orange County? And are these projects or transportation situations related? Of course they are. And so guess I'm supportive of the bill like everybody else, but I'd sure like to see the language. I'd like to see what you're doing. I'd like to see an analysis. We don't have any of that. So what are you going to do? What's your plan?
Here's what I'm proposing. With the indulgence of the committee, of course, because I know I am asking everyone to stretch, and with my commitment to keeping the full committee informed, including all the staff.
And would you be willing to have the bill come back to this committee?
I would be willing to.
After the amendments are taken?
As long as it doesn't conflict with any deadline, Senator Harman. What I'm trying to do, Senator Harman...
I don't have control over, but you do.
Not necessarily. We need to, you know... But anyway, the chairman and committee staff have been involved. We could have jimmied up some language for today, but that doesn't help when there are issues to be dealt with and multiple stakeholders. We've got the associated governments, we've got the labor community, environmentalists, the transit advocates, and the local cities. This is a 40-mile stretch, right? 27-mile stretch, 40-year plan. Excuse me, I'm getting my numbers mixed up. So, and although the Sandag folks made a strong case for opposing the bill as is, there is a lot of local support for it. In fact, the Voice of San Diego, one of our internet web pages, asked, what about expanding I-5, or what about Senator Keogh's proposal? And I think 64% or something said the Keogh proposal has some merit. So we need to offer transportation choices. But the long and the short of it is the committee can retain jurisdiction. If the chair is not satisfied or committee vice chair is not satisfied, you'll be able to pull it back. I hope you won't need to. All the appropriations will give ample opportunity for the language to be reviewed. So that's what my request is today.
Senator Huff.
And would you be willing to have the Chair of Appropriations give it adequate review?
Yes.
Yeah.
I promise you'll scrutinize the bill in detail.
All right. Actually, my questions or comments were along the line of Senator Harmon. I was wondering if you'd
Yeah.
just bring it back after it makes its route across the other house, and we could bring it in here and just look at it then.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to meet with you informally, make sure you know what's going on.
Well, if we could just see... Yeah, after the assembly, but before it comes back for concurrence, if we could just pull it
Happy
into
to.
committee then I think that solves our problem to see, what it looks like.
Happy to do that, Senator Huff.
Cool.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you,
The
Senator
bill's been
Pavley.
moved by Senator Pavley with amendments to be taken in appropriations.
And
Any
thanks, Art, for all your help. I know they
Any
hated it.
other members of the panel, committee? Would you like to close, Senator?
Ask for your aye vote.
Will the Secretary please call the roll?
The motion is due pass and re-refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines? Harmon? Huff? Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye. Rubio? Semidian? 4-0.
Bob?
4-0.
The bill has 4 votes.
I'll support it when it comes back.
Okay, all right.
We'll place
I'll
that on
take you up
call
that.
for the absent members.
Thank you.
With that, we turn the gavel back to the esteemed chair of this committee.
Thank
the
you.
Honorable Senator DeSantis.
And I would like to thank the sergeants for letting me out of the bathroom. Mr. Lowenthal locked myself and the vice chair in there. He wanted the power back of being chair of this committee, so we were trying to get back out, but I appreciate you.
It's good to
Mr.
see you
Chairman
out of the bath.
Emeritus, would you like to present your bill, Senator Lowenthal?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Fine.
I left him in there. Senator Lowenthal is going to present item number 13, SB 910, bicycles and passing distances. And the recommendation is do pass with amendments to judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
No.
SB 910 is a very straightforward bill. It mandates a 3-foot distance between a cyclist and a motor vehicle when that motor vehicle is passing the cyclist. 3 feet when you're passing a cyclist. Current law simply states that a motorist must pass at, quotes, a safe distance when overtaking a bicycle. This current definition is overly vague. While one individual may believe that 10 feet is a safe distance, and another person may believe they can do it with a foot or 2 feet, but we do not know what a safe distance is. It's very unclear. By providing in statute that a 3-foot standard, we remove the ambiguity that currently exists and we provide law enforcement with a clear standard from which to operate. Members, cycling for both transportation and for recreation has seen phenomenal growth and will continue to see tremendous growth as over the past few years and into the foreseeable future. As a result, interactions between motorists and cyclists are also on the rise. I believe that this bill will better protect cyclists by providing them with a 3-foot buffer, while at the same time it will provide motorists a defined distance in which to pass. SB 910 does more. It allows a motorist to briefly cross a solid double line when safe while passing a cyclist. Finally, the bill would also allow motorists the ability to pass the cyclist inside of 3 feet at a safe distance if the motorist is going no faster than 15 miles per hour than the cyclist. I would just like to close by saying that the proposal is not a radical one. What we're discussing here today has been approved by and passed by 17 states The most recent one was Kansas, which just passed the same 3-foot law this year, and that bill goes into effect on July 1. I ask for your aye vote.
Witnesses in support? And before we begin, Senator Lowenthal, of course, you're taking the amendments.
And I will take as author. I would like to discuss, I think, the issue which will go forward. I think the one about the 15 miles per hour. All the other amendments I would like to accept as author's
Okay.
amendments.
So for the record, you're
And then
accepting
have
all of
the
them but that
discussion.
one, and we'll come back to that.
Right, we'll come back
talk
to that
about
one.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate that, even if you... And we will keep you guys informed.
Okay. Senator Lowenthal, you remember how exceptional our staff is here in this committee. We did want it on the record that you were accepting the two-tiered approach as far as the penalty goes.
Yes, I am accepting the two-tiered approach, reducing the penalty to, I think it's a pass, $35 for, and only if there's actual, I believe it's if there's contact, if there's an injury.
Bodily injury. Okay, we just needed that for the record, so we'll come back to the other thing.
Accept that. Yeah, the only one I'd like to come back after the discussion is the one on the passing at 15 miles per hour, and I'm sure that will come up during our discussion.
Thank you. As always, an incredibly gracious member. Witnesses in support.
Can you speak and introduce yourself and your name?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Dave Snyder. I'm the relaunch director and CEO of the California Bicycle Coalition, co-sponsoring this bill with the City of Los Angeles. We work for safe, healthy, and livable communities by promoting the bicycle for transportation and recreation. We work to coordinate and represent scores of local and regional bicycle advocacy organizations and riding clubs, who together have tens of thousands of dues-paying members, and many of whom are among the millions of Californians who regularly get on their bikes and ride. Too many of those Californians have some real horror stories about dangerous passing, and including me. When you ride a bike, you pick a straight line as far out of traffic as you can get while staying away from hazards at the edge of the road. And you need some space to avoid a pothole, to avoid a tire tread, to avoid some debris in the roadway. And so you need to count on motorists giving you at least 3 feet so that you can swerve. When they don't do that, it is one of the most scary things, because you realize that the slightest error by them or the slightest need by you to swerve could have a really tragic and horrifying result. I want to read now a story from a news article in a blog called Bike Radar of someone who has a similar story. He's Mr. John Whitehead, the public relations director of the Davis Bike Club, who was bicycling in Solano County. He says, "Teenagers in a pickup truck deliberately passed me with inches to spare. I got the license plate number and happened to see a police car shortly thereafter. The officer brushed me off, saying that the passing distance must have been safe if they didn't hit me." That's all too common. It's scary, and the scariness is not just perception. More than a third of the fatal crashes are caused by motorists overtaking bicyclists. By far the most common cause of fatal bicycle crashes. Those are the reported statistics. How many more fatal crashes are caused by a cyclist having to hit an obstacle instead of swerve into a car? And the police report says they fell all by themselves because the cyclist is dead and unable to dispute that, and the motorist went on. How many more are killed by intimidating drivers who probably didn't mean to injure someone, but did so because they thought it was okay to pass very closely? Senator Lowenthal's bill, SB 910, is necessary to stop this. As he noted, it changes motorists' understanding to make it very clear that they need to give at least 3 feet of passing. It gives them the assurance that if it's safe to do so, they can cross the double yellow line. If this passes, Millions of Californians who get on their bikes will have more assurance that they can ride safely, and they will be able to share that assurance with the residents of the 17 other states who enjoy a bill like this, most recently, as the senator said, in Kansas, but including places like Maine, Louisiana, and Mississippi. I think California needs to join those leading states in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Alex Esparza on behalf of Mayor Villaraigosa and the City of LA here as a co-sponsor of this bill. Just wanted to say that this is obviously an important public safety measure, and it's much in line with what we're trying to do in the City of LA. In the City of Los Angeles, for example, we've started a public awareness campaign that states, "Give me 3 feet," and essentially that's to provide bicyclists a buffer to protect against harmful accidents. Also, the city has invested heavily in sales tax Measure R funds to provide up to 1,600 miles of bicycle lanes and paths and facilities. So we think that this bill is a natural progression to what we're trying to do in the City of Los Angeles. So for those reasons, we're here as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Hello, members. My name is Bill Burton.
You're off. You're on. You're off.
I'm on.
You're on.
Hello, members. My name is Bill Burton. I run a public bike fleet with 4,000 bikes borrowed, something called library bikes. And I have a lot of experience with cycling over 40 years and racing and other in Europe and everything. And cycling is growing in California. As a transportation mechanism, I think this is a good bill. I'm in support of the bill that helps people feel more comfortable using the roads as part of this new oncoming transportation system. We've been working with the Highway Patrol and the groups like AAA and the trucking interests to make this work for everybody. So you have a good, strong bill here. There might be some slight details that we will work with. But as it is, it will work fine with support, or with, if we talk about the 15-mile-an-hour thing, that'll probably come up. And I think a lot of moms and dads with kids, after this bill passes, will feel safer about maybe going to town or going to school, because they will have some assurance of more space, more safety. And that's really, there's enough space out there. It's just we need to share that space. Thank you.
Michael Endicott on behalf of Sierra Club California on proof that actually larger people can ride, and I do need the 3 feet, and we support this bill. Thank you very much.
Any other witnesses in support? Large or small? Any witnesses in opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, James Lombardo on behalf of CABO, California Association of Bicycle Organizations. I think perhaps I should have been up on Senator Kehoe's bill saying that we support or oppose depending on the amendments. And I know that the bill has been amended, so I'm not too sure that we're still opposed. And I did want to say that there was one section, Senator Kehoe did help us get a task force together with the Highway Patrol and other people. And one of the sections that we looked at was Section 21809 as far as passing at a safer speed or an acquired speed. So that might be one to look at. Senator Lowenthal is a great advocate on behalf of bicyclists, and we truly admire him, and we'll work with him on the bill.
So we're clear that you're in support of Senator Lowenthal, but maybe or maybe not the bill.
Probably the bill.
Go ahead.
Paula Labrie with AAA of Northern California, and our position was opposed unless amended. Thank you, Senator Lowenthal, for taking all the amendments that were suggested in the analysis. We certainly appreciate that, and the one sticking point left is that 15-mile-per-hour passing. I believe we can probably work that out with the senator. That is just the point right now where we keeps us remained opposed unless amended, and we look forward to working with the author on that point.
You. Other witnesses in opposition?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Tim Chang with the Auto Club of Southern California. We do have an opposed unless amended position. We were engaged in some discussions prior to the committee hearing with Senator Lowenthal and the proponents of the bill. We are cautiously optimistic that we will be able to work out the final detail on the 15 mile per hour.
Thank you. Senator Rubio, did you have a comment or question? After Senator Huff. Senator Huff. followed
Okay.
by Senator Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remember this bill when we heard it in Assembly before, when Assemblyman Nava had it, or something very similar to it.
It's a little different, though.
A little different. It still has some of the same fundamental problems. And first of all, I'm a huge fan of, I think people got to respect bike riders. In a former day when I was skinnier and more athletic, I used to ride bike quite a bit. When I was in college, I was actually forced off of a narrow road with my feet in clips and had raspberry all up my side. I was fortunate I wasn't injured worse. As an adult, I had teenagers come by and sneak up on me and whack me on the back of my bike helmet as they were passing. And then they did it again 3 months later. I got their license that time, turned them in, and the law went and had a little chat with them. But I think the biggest problem with this is that what's 3 feet? It's a subject. It's not like you got little feeler gauges that are 3 feet on a car or on a bike. So how does an officer enforce that? How does a passing car know that they're 3 feet? I mean, it's a subject. It's objective, but there's no way to accurately measure it. If you could speak to that just a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think that's an excellent point. I think we have to step back and realize that we have an infrastructure primarily that was created for automobiles and not for bicycles. Cities all over this state are trying to create ways in which they're going to be able to coexist. And there are many, many different models that are out there. And we're not interested in the police or the highway patrol ticketing people because they're 2 feet 10 inches or 3 feet 5. What we're really interested in at least beginning that education process, and I'll kind of continue on 2 issues, this one and the other one, because I think they're both related, saying that there should be 3 feet. Now, and knowing that that is may not be exactly, and no one's going to get tickets, but roughly around 3 feet. And that's really what has now become the acceptable practice throughout this nation. And if I tell you the states that now are going to 3 feet with the same issues, that's Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, Illinois, Wisconsin, Maryland, New Hampshire, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, Tennessee, Minnesota, Connecticut, and Maine. So we're seeing a wide urban. So people are coming to, it's a tough issue. But the other part is that why do we also have, which is also very subjective and difficult to deal with, why do we have the 15-mile-an-hour, you can only go, that says that there are streets in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, that are very narrow. And that if there's a bicyclist out there, there really isn't potentially the 3 feet to pass them on these very narrow streets. And if you don't provide that motorist with an opportunity to pass, you will get people brushing up against, just like what happened to you. So we have to go with what we're dealt with, the deck that we're dealt with. And so the 15 miles is to tell motorists, not that we're going to give tickets if you're going 17 or 14. If you're on a narrow street and the 3 feet does not apply, you've got to slow down when you pass that person. You cannot be, what happens frequently, we hear many, many instances of what you're saying is motorists are caught in city traffic, they get real angry, and they cut off the cyclist because they have no options. We need to figure out, and that's why we also had the opportunity that if it's safe and you're on a substandard width street that's 2 lanes, you're a motorist and it is safe, you are allowed to cross that double line to pass. All of these, you're right, there is a measure of subjectivity. But unless we begin to define pretty much and let everybody know what the rules are and how we're going to protect both motorists and cyclists at a time that we're not going to be creating new urban infrastructure tremendously to widen all of our streets. This is an attempt that's based upon practices that are done throughout the nation. And I know I'm asking you to take a stretch, and they're not, but I think it's fair, it's reasonable, it's practical, it doesn't cost tremendous amounts of money, and it moves us forward into a time where we're going to be sharing more of the road without penalizing either side to do it. This is our attempt, and we're trying to base it on the best practices that are out there.
And I appreciate where you're going with it. I understand it better the way you are. I guess another concern I have is when it's the bicycle problem that he has swerved out of the line in which he has been going, and let's say he has contact with the vehicle. There's no witnesses. It's his word versus the driver's word. Is the driver at fault because there's been contact, therefore the car did not keep 3 feet distance?
I don't know. We'd have to ask him. I will just tell you that in statistics that I have seen, and I don't know if this answers your question about who's at fault and what is at fault, that at least the majority of the statistics that have usually are compiled, somewhere around 55%, those numbers vary, say that 55% of the accidents in generally are the cyclist's fault. That is, what way? They're the fault when the cyclist has gone through a red light, when the cyclist is making a left turn without doing it safely, or while there's been drinking. On the other side, when the motorist is at fault is when they're speeding and they hit cyclists on there. So somewhere in there, we've got to figure out how to protect both, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's almost 40. There's a huge number where existing under just driving with a safe distance and what we have now without really elucidating in the code, there's still a large number that law enforcement, judgmental, say it's the cyclist's fault, and a large number that they say it's the motorist's fault. And that's really where we are today in our data.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate your explanation, and you did a much better job than the previous presenter. I'm not sure. I mean, not previous presenter here. Last time I heard a version of that. Striking at the heart. Somebody that's going to kill bills and appropriations committee. No. I mean, that member
Mr. Huff, you're closer than 3 feet to Senator Keogh.
Yeah. I was a little closer than 3 feet on that one, wasn't I?
I agree with that.
But no, I wasn't referring to Senator Keogh.
Thank you. And I understand where you're coming from, and I appreciate it because you're right. And especially those that really want, when we're driving, really clearly defined, we may never be able to get there. I'm just trying to do it based on best practices.
Yes. Thank you.
Senator Rubio, and then Senator Harmon, then Senator Keogh wants to defend herself.
First, I want to thank the author for bringing this very important bill forward. When I first read it, I must tell you that I glossed over the 15 miles per hour provision of the bill, and I thought, geez, if our chairman is cycling down the road, no one will be able to pass him because I know he rides a hell of a lot faster than 15 miles per hour. He's a stud.
Depends what's behind me. If it was Senator Huff.
In his motorcycle.
In his motorcycle.
And we realize that part is the one that we're going to have to work on.
It will be.
We understand that this is our best attempt now, and we're working with everybody, and I think everybody understands now why we're using that as an alternative. Whether it ultimately ends up as the best, let's as this bill moves forward, let's.
It's going to be very difficult.
I know.
But in terms of the intent, I would love to join author, whatever I can do to help move this bill along, to the point that Senator Huff brought up, the question of whose word is going to be determined to be accurate. Too often, whenever there's a vehicle-cyclist collision, the only person talking at the end is the driver of the car.
Right.
Because the cyclist doesn't get to talk after that. So I think however we can promote the 3 feet rule, the 3-foot rule, I think is a worthy effort that we ought to put forward in this legislature.
It's a slogan, and it's an awareness.
It is. So thank you for bringing, and I'll move on the bill.
Senator Harmon? And then Senator Keogh.
Yeah, I have kind of a follow-up to Senator Huff's question about enforcement. And there are some traffic enforcement officers out there, I think you would agree, that are sometimes a little aggressive in their enforcement. It happens. But if you're speeding and you get a citation or you're stopped, you kind of know you were speeding. If you made an illegal left turn, then you see the sign, you know that. If you cross over the double yellow line, you kind of know you've done that, and you take your medicine when the officer stops you and writes you a citation. But here, I don't see how the driver who drives on past a bicyclist and then is stopped by a traffic enforcement officer and says, well, sir, you were within 3 feet or closer than 3 feet, and there's no way to defend yourself. The bicyclist is probably gone. You don't even know the exact spot where, the passage too close occurred. How does a person defend themselves, and how does an officer decide that that's 3 feet and they're 100 yards away or 50 yards or how far away they are?
Let's understand where we're starting from. Right now, you can still get a ticket. You don't even have that 3 feet. It's now a safe distance, and you can get a ticket.
I'm comfortable with the safe distance.
Well, that's a safe distance in one person.
You
know, when the safe distance, that same law enforcement officer can say, well, it should have been 5 feet. That's a safe distance, and you're driving only 3. So we have tremendous ambiguities right now in the law, and that's really what we're hearing from people out there. There is ambiguity. They don't know what it is, both in terms of from law enforcement, and that's why other states also have done it. The second part about that is that I think we're learning more and more that 3 feet, as you're seeing bicycle lanes, tend to be now 3 feet throughout the state. And people are learning that 3 feet is that distance, 3 to 5, 5 feet, on both sides. But 3 feet out, they try to be if you're staying at least. So we're kind of learning, that there's a margin that's out there. Again, whether it's the 3 feet or the 15 miles, what we're really trying to get of no faster than 15 miles faster is that what Senator Rubio said, if you're hit by a car, it's the cyclist that gets hurt, not the car. Second one is law enforcement knows that if the road is not wide and you're driving and you drive real close to that person, let's say you're going 30 miles an hour and you're getting real close, you're doing something wrong. It's not that you're going 15 or 18 and they have to worry about exactly what that mileage or exactly what 3 feet is, and yet there is subjective. But if we have a set of rules and bicyclists have to obey those rules, cyclists, and so do motorists, and we begin to really instill that in the public that it's this distance, this is where it is, and we're going to have tremendous variability because we don't have separate lanes in most places. This is what we're living with, the same infrastructure, the existing that we have today. This is what, in terms of best practices, if you're traveling from all the states around California, Arizona, we're moving in this direction. And I'm just telling you, this is going to become common practice.
Let me ask another question in an unrelated area, but I'm looking at the fine of $220.
Oh, we've dropped that to $35.
Pardon me? Oh,
we've dropped that to $35. That was one of the amendments that we took.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Senator Rubio, did you have something else?
There's just been a lot of discussion about what would happen or in terms of enforcement after someone gets hit and whatever the case is. And I feel compelled that as someone who commutes to work, and then rides somewhat competitively, though I never compete, but I try to, in training rides, the more often scenario that you encounter is a vehicle, someone who's driving a truck, car, or something, whether it's road rage, whatever it is, they will speed up and brush right by you, even though you are as to the far right on the road as humanly possible. And I don't know why they do that. They just do. That is the more common occurrence on the road for a cyclist and someone who's riding a bike than an accident. And it's those types of instances that are very dangerous and that should be against the law. And I think that is what this bill targets and accomplishes, and that's why I
just coming in today from there's a I don't know what do they call them, Ghost bikes out by Sac State on April 2nd. A bicyclist was killed just right in front by Sac State, and there was another one just I think a month earlier right here in the city as you come in from east. So we're trying as this bill, and we encourage input to do it. This is a difficult one to come to grips with how you do it. What we're trying to do is to say somehow the culture has to be that we have to protect both cyclists and motorists, and we have to figure out a way to do that. And this is based upon best practices out there, what we believe is our best first step.
Okay. I don't know if Senator Keogh, did you want to have any comments? Okay.
Could
I? Senator Gaines. Go ahead, Senator Lipper. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Great. Yeah, I've got some concerns about this 15-mile-per-hour aspect. I think you're going to create a lot of traffic
No, we're going to slow. Right now, there's usually what occurs now, and the reason why, we're not telling you to slow down if you're passing if you give 3 feet. That's not to slow down. This is really in those places where it's very difficult to pass, where you may want to pass, but you may not feel like there's you have 3 feet to do it. So you need to slow down if that's what you're going to do on those. People would be using that as, when in fact, if we don't do that, there's a lineup of cars behind that cyclist that really slows down traffic. Cars feeling like there's no way because there's not the 3 feet to be able to pass. It will speed up traffic if they will slow down and pass by just maintaining.
But a cyclist can ride 15 miles an hour.
So then you can go 15 miles faster than that. It's 15
it's
miles
plus 15.
faster. Within 15 miles of, we want to keep the speed that you have to pass that cyclist, and under those conditions when it's really not possible to do the 3 feet. Because we have urban centers where it's just not possible, and we cannot have that traffic backed up.
Senator, may I?
But we're willing to work on that. We understand that.
I want to make sure there's a flow of traffic.
That's exactly right. We want to keep that flow, but we want to protect the cyclists.
Right. Now, I'm also concerned about the fine because
we've dropped it down to $35.
But we've had this discussion before because is it really 35?
No, it's probably more with all the add-ons.
A couple hundred.
But that's really what you would get for passing illegally if you were in a car passing another car illegally. And that's really the same. So we based it, that's what, on the analysis done by, we had set it up originally at 200, which would have ended up 220. I think the consultant said it would be $997 with all the add-ons.
Okay.
We agree. That is really not really for that going within the 3 feet. So we reduced it to the same fine that you have in a motor vehicle for unsafe passage, really, is, I think, the thing.
Okay. And what about just the PR campaign? Why do we need another law and another fine?
We're just trying to keep this. We're just trying to figure out the roads are going to be for everybody. We have how to do this. We're not interested in fining people, but we are interested in making sure that there are rules and regulations of the road and that we observe those rules by keeping.
I agree with you. There's issues. I mean, a lot of people are getting killed.
A lot of people.
A lot of cyclists are, and I ride, and you've got to be very careful. I try to stay on the bike trail, quite frankly, because
I don't blame you.
It's safer there, in my opinion. But at the same time, I worry about this onerous government again dictating what we can and cannot do, and
we're trying to keep that at a minimum. We're trying to keep that.
Our officers to adhere to.
Yeah, we're trying to keep that at a minimum now, and we agree with the consultant.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Senator Lowenthal, would you like to close?
No, I think this has been a great discussion. I think the issues that were raised by the members of the committee are right on, and these are what we will have to be dealing with as we go forward. And I think these are the issues that count, that transportation issues that the committee should be dealing with. And so I'm pleased to have this opportunity, and I urge your aye vote. And I will bring this bill back to committee if it does change, because, again, we're starting off with best practices, and we're going to see how it meets the needs of California.
So just for the record, you're accepting all the amendments, including the two-tiered, but the 15 miles per hour?
Yeah.
You want to continue to work on that?
But continue to work on that, because that's really the issue, and we want to hear. And we've just begun that discussion with the Automobile Club, who now understand why we're doing it, but we may need to, and also CHP, and to figure out, and also the consultant also on the committee, to figure out, is that the most appropriate one? There is a unique situation where we want motorists to slow down. We understand. And now that's what we're struggling with. What's the best way to do that?
Well, we appreciate the discussion. We appreciate you demonstrating leadership on this. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about infrastructure. When we look at other cultures that have more robust ridership, where the good news is Californians are riding their bikes more. The bad news is the infrastructure is way behind. When you look at European cultures like Amsterdam, where over 50% of the trips are by bicycle, even though the weather's awful, or I think Copenhagen, same thing. In Germany, I remember once walking in a bicycle lane in Munich, and you don't walk in a bicycle lane. And it's important, the infrastructure, if you build it, they will be safe. So I think that's our bigger challenge is we need to really focus on, with all our other challenges, the reality, the good news is that people are using bikes more often, but we need to build infrastructure to suit them in very urbanized areas. So with that, we're looking for a motion to do pass as amended.
Senator
to
Rubio
oppose.
is
It's already done by Senator Rubio. I'm very sorry, Senator Rubio. We'll ask the Secretary to call the roll, and then we'll ask Senator Correa to come up and do his bill.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Abstain.
Harmon? No. Harmon, no. Huff? Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Pavley, aye. Rubio? Aye. Rubio, aye. Simitian.
5-1, that'll go on call. Senator, thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Correa, you have one bill, and it's item 2, common interest developments. Never a controversial issue around.
This is a very simple but important bill. No, and that's MOU, no MOU today. Senate Bill 150, if I may start, Mr. Chair and Senators. This bill is sponsored by the California Association of Realtors, and some of you may be familiar with it. It was previously voted on and passed on our committee floor unanimously in 2008. It was AB 2259 by Mr. Mullen, and then unanimously in 2010 as AB 1927 by Mr. Knight. It was on both times vetoed by former Governor Schwarzenegger. This bill is intended to protect the rights of common interest development unit owners to rent their units if such a right existed at the time they purchased that unit. That's it.
Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman and members, Dave Milton with California Association of Realtors. I couldn't explain it any better than our author. If you bought the unit in the CID and at the time you bought it, you had a right to rent, you run into some financial difficulties or relocation problems, or you simply cannot pay the mortgage on it, and you cannot sell it in this market, then what our bill says is that if you had the right to rent, you can rent it to not lose possession of it, and we certainly and respectfully request an aye vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Carrie Mazzoni for the Executive Council of Homeowners. While we have not filed a letter to date because of the change in content in the bill, we have a support. If amended, what we would like to see is the prospective language reinserted into the bill, and then we would be in support. Thank you.
Witnesses in opposition?
Welcome Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ron Kingston, representing Community Associations Institute members. Community Associations Institute is a statewide association representing homeowner associations. We have faced this bill on a few other occasions, and the committee has looked at this in two very distinct patterns. One, of course, is Mr. Mullen's bill, which is very similar to Mr. Correa's bill this year.
As Mr. Knight's bill.
And Mr. Knight's bill. And those two bills are very different. Mr. Knight's bill of last year was very clean, very easily understood, and everybody signed off. And that bill simply said, if you're going to have a renter restriction in a homeowner association, have everybody vote on it, and through their democratic process, record it, and so it applies accordingly to everybody. And that bill was fine with everybody. This bill is not with Community Associations Institute, and here's why. Homeowner associations, when they consider a deed restriction, it goes through a very intense labor-intensive process, and that process invites public debate, forums, meetings, a formal vote, ultimately the restriction in this case, which would be a renter restriction, is voted on. Now, and that has been the case where homeowner associations want a renter restriction. For others, they don't mind at all. And we submit that one uniform standard, when that is considered, should apply to all the homeowners. Today, you've listened to dozens, or roughly dozens of bills applying uniform standards, whether it's a bicycle bill or whatnot. And we believe that the homeowner association should abide accordingly. Can you imagine having one renter restriction adopted this year, another one 5 years from now, and another one a few years after that? And many of the same homeowners are still there. So what this does is the homeowner association board, the homeowner association management, if there is professional management, has to uniformly follow each one of those restrictions. It becomes an administrative nightmare. Second, this is really.
Are we talking about the same bill?
Yes, we are. And
you're talking about uniform.
This is
policy. We're talking about just saying no. You can't restrict homeowners' ability to rent.
Mr. Correa, what this bill says is that homeowner associations would be able to adopt a renter restriction policy, and where there is a change, it applies to prospective homeowners. That's the entire bill. And what we have a problem with is really threefold. One of which is we submit that if there is a renter restriction policy, it should apply to anybody who's sitting in place, in occupancy, or not. Second, let's say, for example, this is a particular problematic issue with this bill. Let's say, for example, there is a renter restriction policy. No more than 20% of the homeowners can rent, and you're at that 20% standard. And one day, the owner in Unit 3 is called to duty. He can't afford to sell the unit. It won't bring that amount of money. He's only going to be gone, let's say, a year. And he is faced with a dilemma. He needs to rent it out, but he can't rent it out because the deed restrictions that apply to him are frozen in time for him. This bill makes no accommodation for that. And we believe and submit to the committee that there should be times where the hardship cases should be permitted. Now, this bill does say if the owner permits it, well, there's an exception. That doesn't apply in this situation, but hardship cases need to apply. And third and finally, we submit that where there are situations where the associations need to adjust due to mortgage restrictions, they need to make that adjustment regardless. And for this reason, we believe that Mr. Knight's approach was far superior than the Correa approach.
So you're opposed to the bill? That's just joking.
Until it's amended.
All right. Other witnesses in opposition?
Thank you. Mary Beth Green with the California Association of Community Managers. I'd like to thank you, Chair, and the committee for hearing my testimony. On behalf of the California Association of Community Managers, we are community management professionals who manage homeowners associations and other common interest developments. We are also opposed to this bill for a couple of reasons. There's been some talk about what the FHA will or will not allow as far as rentals go. And having tracked both the FHA and the FHFA recently, I will tell you that that is a moving target. So what's happened is, back in the day, the FHA required 80% of the units to be owner-occupied in order for you to qualify for an FHA loan. Then they changed it to 50%. Great, in recognition that the market conditions do change. And now there's no real clear direction on what that percentage is. There was a piece of FHA, a memorandum that was being distributed that talks about lifting the ban entirely, except that you'll notice that it's only good for 1 year. And we don't know what the FHA is going to require next year or when the economy approves. And what we're asking for is if if you're going to make these kinds of amendments, you would listen to the membership. The membership has the right to vote to make these changes, and it is majority rules. In some cases, it's supermajority that is required to amend the governing documents. And when you get, I can assure you, if you haven't been through a homeowners association election lately, getting a quorum of anybody to agree on anything is a very arduous task. And to get them to agree to rental restrictions basically means that the majority of the members want this to happen. One of the biggest concerns is if we say that rental restrictions can't apply to associations or that you have to grandfather people in, what's going to happen with the next piece of legislation that comes through? We can't amend for technology. We won't be able to amend for any other piece of legislation that might come through. So this sets an uncomfortable precedence, essentially telling homeowners associations that you can't govern yourselves. And so we respectfully oppose this bill.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Senator Gaines?
Yeah, just clarification. But it's my understanding that if you have the ability to rent out or lease your unit, that would remain in effect into perpetuity.
That is what we're trying to go.
Right, okay.
This is about...
So I'm trying to understand the...
rights as a property owner here. Think about what the opposition is asking you to do. All I'm saying is if you bought into, in most of the construction now is under homeowners association. If you have that right when you bought in, we're saying keep it. Don't alienate or take away a person's ability to rent a property. And I don't want to get into the issue of is this a hardship or do we go into a financial test to determine whether you can keep your right to rent? That affects the fair market of your property, and frankly, it's going a bit too far. Now, the opposition also talks about setting a precedent. If I recollect, we've been passing bills in this House that say if you're going to put solar panels on your home in a unit development, guess what? You can do it. And that shouldn't be, that issue should not be addressed by a vote of that association. So this is all about property rights. It's all about making sure that folks can rent, especially in these very hard times.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a very simple bill.
Any other comments or questions? Senator Correa, would you like to close?
Ask for an aye vote on this bill, not on any other bill that may have been addressed here today.
Recommendation is to do pass to judiciary. Is there a motion? Senator Gaines makes the motion. Ask the Secretary to call roll, please.
Senators Desaulniers?
Aye.
Desaulniers, aye. Gaines?
Aye.
Gaines, aye. Harmon?
That's
Harmon, aye. Huff?
Three ayes and one
Kehoe? Kehoe, aye. Lowenthal?
Another
Lowenthal, aye. Pavley? Rubio? Rubio, aye. Semidian? 6 votes.
Okay, you have 6 votes, and we'll leave it on call. Senator Pavley? Senator Pavley has a question.
Not directly related to this bill, but somewhat relevant. Yes, as long as you're here. But if a board for a condominium association, let's say, is having problems with overabundance of pets, can they set different rules for people that are currently living and owning a facility compared to those who rent a facility? Or whatever the rules are. Can you have one set of rules or whatever for people that are the property owners and one set of rules for people that are renters?
I am not an attorney, but I will tell you that my understanding of the law is that the law applies to the owners. So when there is a problem with a tenant not complying with the association's governing documents,
Can you
and
have
I understand your
separate
question.
rules
Right.
for-
I've never seen them. If that's what you're asking, I have never seen an association where they have separate but
rules.
equal
I
right.
don't think you can. Just a
I don't think you can
question.
either,
All right,
but
thank you.
I'm not an attorney.
Senator Pavley, if I may, Dave Milton with the Realtors.
We lost the chairman.
Senator Pavley, a direct answer to your question would be I live in a CID, and I have neighbors that do rent from their owners, and basically the arrangement that the CID, the Homeowners Association, makes with the owner is that the
Excuse me, if we
owners-
could move forward, maybe this conversation could occur separately.
The rental agreement has to be approved by the owner.
Okay.
Great, thank you. We're going to go ahead and look at
Off-topic.
item 8, which is SB 563, Common Interest Developments Meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, this is an effort by committee staff and myself to actually help with communications when it comes to common interest development meetings. The two aspects of the bill, we found that the committee gets a lot of phone calls about concerns about notice and process on common interest development meetings, particularly via the internet. So we're clarifying you shouldn't have these meetings via the internet. You still obviously can communicate, but you have to adhere to the law in terms of notifying. Also changes the number of days before noticing from 4 to 2. I'd also like to suggest, and we'll work on this at the appropriate time, to remove the prohibition on board members. We've had some discussion about just board members having appropriate discussions outside of a meeting. So that's on page 7, lines 29 through 31. But rather than do the amendment right now, I think it's best just to indicate that to everyone who's here that as this is the first policy committee, we're more than willing to meet with people. We know that it's hard. As in the last item, one of the opponents talked about just how hard it is just to get members to engage in these kind of meetings. And what we want to do is try to clarify it, make it simpler for people, but still allow for transparency in this modern age when everyone is busy. So with that, I will turn it over to our witnesses and let them go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Roman Porter. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Political Practices Commission. Today I speak to you on my personal private capacity.
However, he did get your attention, I know.
Yes.
Ears tend to perk up, and thank you for that, and thank you for the invitation to speak. In 2008, I was elected to my Homeowners Association board, and one of the first communications that I received from our property management was a series of communications from the board talking about issues like architectural development, violations of association bylaws, and other policy discussions of that type. And I'm a proponent of open governance. During my day job, I'm very used to holding meetings in an open environment where there's been adequate public notice. And in fact, if these types of communications happen with a majority of the board of a local or state body, they'd be in violation of the Brown Act and Bagley-Keene open meetings laws. So I was pretty awestruck when I saw all this communication taking place and there'd be no public notice and no ability for individuals to voice their concerns or to hold accountable us as the elected body. I raised a number of concerns to the property management and to the other board members, and the answer that I got back was this was allowed within the Davis-Sterling Act. I was very uncomfortable with that, and because of that issue, I resigned my position with the HOA. SB 563 appropriately balances the fundamental concept of open governance with the concerns of small HOAs. There's been a reduction from 4 days to 2 days on noticing of executive sessions. There's been an ability which isn't available in current law of noticing by email the notices of meetings. And there's been an issue where it would allow members to communicate, board members to communicate on emergency issues via email. So I think it strikes a very good balance of the concerns of the association with the property rights of the individuals who are subject to the rules of the association. I imagine, I believe that those in opposition, some of those that are going to come up and speak to you today are in opposition just because they're generally opposed to any increased requirements within the Davis-Sterling Act for a concern of potential increased liability on themselves as members. But I would have to imagine that even those individuals with those concerns can see that there is a benefit to those that they govern by conducting those meetings in open. So with that, I respectfully urge an aye vote.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Carrie Mazzoni for the Executive Council of Homeowners and Organization of Common Interest Developments. We are in support of the bill. We want to thank staff for working closely with us on the content of some of the amendments, and we would agree with the author that the amendment that he alluded to regarding a little bit more specification about when boards can talk to each other, or board members can talk to each other, will improve the bill, but we are still in support. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm Marjorie Murray, speaking for the California Alliance for Retired Americans and also the Center for California Homeowner Association Law, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. One of the most common complaints we get from homeowners is that it is very difficult for them to participate in governance because board meetings are often held by email, and things like special assessments, operating rules governing elections, those are designed and adopted by board members out of view, out of sight, and out of participation by homeowners who are supposed to be complying with the payment of assessments and with elections. We think this bill goes a long way towards correcting this habit of board meetings being conducted by email. We also see this, I really want to emphasize this, this bill is not dealing with a trivial matter. Board meetings are the place where contracts are awarded in the hundreds of millions of dollars annually by homeowner associations, and the board meeting should be the proper venue for homeowner participation in really important issues like the setting of assessments and the development of election operating rules. So we thank the committee for developing this and bringing this bill forward as a committee bill. And as I think you can tell from my remarks, we are definitely in support of it. We urge an aye vote.
Great, thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Okay, witnesses in opposition?
Hello again. Mary Beth Green, California Association of Community Managers. We are oppose unless amend, and I'd like to start by saying that we support the idea of making sure that the members are aware. Senator DeSaulnier came to our Ledge Day at the Capitol about a month ago and talked about this bill.
And I'm still here.
And he survived. He survived. We let him out of the room, although he did say he was going to take the stairs 15 floors down to avoid us. So let me just say that Corporations Code 7211, which talks about board members' abilities to take an action outside of a meeting by unanimous consent, is an essential part of how some of the boards do business, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in between meetings. Unlike government, where you guys have departments, you have a public works department, you have a street repair department, homeowners associations have a board, and that's pretty much it. It's the governing entity that makes decisions on behalf of the association. So where I know emergency issues were addressed in the bill, we have some examples here of what might not constitute an emergency, but certainly we would normally do through an action without meeting. Short sales. In today's market, short sales are very prevalent, where the seller is willing to take less for the home. Usually it's involving a lender. And those deals come down, and we have until 2 o'clock today to get this offer accepted. And when the short sale comes to the association, it's usually because they're asking the board of directors to waive fees, assessments, legal costs that have already been expended by the association. It's not something that can be done lightly, and there isn't a whole lot of pre-direction that you can give a management company to say, we'll accept all short sales that meet these 52 requirements, because those are all very different, and we do those typically through action without meeting. Payment plan requests that are made outside of a pre-directed amount or a pre-directed time frame, those go through actions without meeting. Contract changes in the field. There's a tree trimming project, and the tree trimmers are out there, and a homeowner says, please don't trim the trees behind my house. It gives me privacy. We would contact the board of directors and ask them for unanimous consent outside of the board meeting. common area turnovers from the builders. That is a critical piece where it takes the onus from the builders and puts it onto the association for turnover of maintenance of those properties. They typically don't happen during the time of a board meeting, and so those are done via unanimous consent outside of a board meeting. Bond releases. Similarly, you have a developer who's trying to get an assessment bond released, or trying to get a subsidy bond released, or trying to get a maintenance bond release. All of those happen outside of a board meeting. They are done through unanimous consent. They're not typically considered emergency items, and if the board doesn't act quickly within a day or two, it can cost the builders hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So those are items that we see happening on a regular basis. And then I'd like to quickly note posting executive session agendas. While I understand the reasoning behind it, in theory it makes sense to you guys because this is what you're required to do as part of your vocation. But I had one association where when the Open Meeting Act was amended to post agendas, we went ahead and we wanted to go over and beyond. We posted an executive session agenda, and we had a bunch of members show up all mad that they couldn't attend. So why would you invite people to a party and then say you can't come? And those are my comments. We have offered a couple of amendments, and those amendments at this point have been refused.
Mr. Chairman, Skip Daum on behalf of the Community Associations Institute, and we have spoken to the author previously about this bill and to the staff. Overall, we have some comments that I think are worthy not only of the record, but your sincere interest. The basic thrust of the bill, we understand, is to achieve transparency. We get that. We're in favor of that. But in doing so, it creates tremendous practical problems in how it may or may not be implemented. For instance, it really would, and I'll give you just 3 sentences on this and then give you an example of each, really will cripple the board's ability to act on non-emergency but essential items before the next published meeting, which could be months away, particularly in the snowbird HOAs down in Palm Desert, if you will. It wipes out the ability for directors to agree, disregard that one. It requires additional notices, and as Mary Beth has said, requiring a 2-day notice for an executive session to, in my case, 6,500 homes, they know about it great, but they can't attend. The law prevents them from entering the room for that meeting. And then what we will hear is, why are you sending out 6,500 notices to a meeting I can't go to and spending 44 cents per? That's expenditure of HOA dues that this bill will mandate, and it's unnecessary. As a matter of fact, it's infuriating to some individual homeowners. An example of why something might be not urgent, but, well, I'd say urgent, but not unforeseeable. Existing law says that an emergency meeting must be something that is unforeseeable. We'll take this for an example. The front gate does not open. It's shut. People can't get out for work. In Tahoe Donner, we can't get out in case of a fire. Kids can't get home back into the gate after curfew, whatever it is. So this board, while not, it's important that it be handled now, but is it foreseeable? Sure, it's foreseeable. Gates don't open, so it can't be an emergency meeting. Now we have to wait 4 days, or have the board convene immediately to appropriate $350 to a locksmith on an urgent basis to come and open the gate. So that's an example of how the 4-day notice for every instance between published board meetings really hampers the ability to conduct the corporation and function as a board should. Routine matters. I guess in today's age, we have a series of emails as part of the bill. Well, my question is, what is an email? And is an email instantaneous, microsecond response to a question in a meeting between published board meetings is essentially being in person, as far as I'm concerned. Today you have Skype. You have GoToMeeting. You are concurrently, simultaneously communicating with one another. And this bill would say that you can't do that. And what's weird is that this bill says you can do it for emergency sessions, but you can't do it for other sessions. What's the difference? And so with those practical problems that cause the association to spend more money, hamper the decision-making in important, urgent matters, but can't be emergency sessions, and inviting people to meetings they can't come to, we think it's a little overreaching, and we don't think it needs to go that far. So we oppose the bill as it's currently written, and I understand the authors agreed to meet with us.
Okay. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to Senator DeSaulnier, you're a brave man for taking on CIDs. But I do think the last couple of comments have raised some issues for me. If maybe you could just address them all as a group. The requirement for the big mailings, the notice of executive session. I can see where that would be awkward in a residential community. I mean, it's different from a city council. Maybe the executive committee would have to report to the general meeting or something. And then maybe Mr. Porter can help me with this one side question. What does a homeowners group need a executive session for anyway? People are getting sued or?
Actually, I wouldn't be able to speak to that because, again, as I said,
maybe Skip can.
Yes, executive sessions, Senator, are for things like employee evaluations, salary increases, benefits, litigation, things that are wholly the jurisdiction.
Okay, that's legit.
Yes.
Okay, well then to the author on the requirement for the large mailings, and how would you, is there a better way to handle noticing executive sessions without having residents show up saying, why did you tell me about it if you don't want me to be here?
I think there's a number of things, and thanks for your acknowledging my bravery. Bravery, courage is a thin line between stupidity and courage sometimes. I think it's worth
insanity, but that's the health committee.
I think it's worth the discussion. One of the things is the staff just reminded me, and I think a simple way, and we may change this in discussions. The bill allows for an email card.